it is a very sacred Sunday morning. Absolutely, no doubt about it. Um, I've got a really cool friend on that I'm just getting to know myself. I met her on Saturday Night Alive a while back. And more, I've been inviting people that I meet on Saturday Night Alive onto the Sacred Sunday show just to get to know them more fully, more depth, especially when it's someone who is as multi-talented as Maitreya Wolf. And I'm going to put the spotlight on her right now and tell you a little bit about her um, because she is definitely a fascinating soul. She's a modern mystic, and she lives the path of soul with passion, authenticity, authenticity, integrity, power, and joy. Yep. She's a natural born healer, and she's deeply attuned to the subtle and mysterious, as well as the dynamic territory of the human experience. By the way, she wrote this, and as you hear these words, you can also see what an amazing wordsmith she is. Maitreya deftly weaves hard-earned wisdom with deep compassion, keen insight, and a fiery East Coast edge into a session-based practice that supports others in healing and embodying their own soul's wisdom and power. This unique and wild journey that she's created is known as soul power mentoring. So we're going to learn about soul power mentoring today. We're going to learn about or have an experience of her as a muse and as an amazing musical person. And kind of along those lines, she is blessed to have this amazing voice. And she pours a lot of beauty into the world through her original music and the ancient art of storytelling. I love storytelling because I'm a storyteller. She weaves soaring vocals with finger-style guitar playing and the frame drum. Her music will move you to the depths of your being and heal things in you you did not even know were wounded. And so it is. She has an energy tinting class, which she'll be hosting online. She'll talk about that. And I'm just really excited to have her on the show. An hour is not going to be enough time to cover all the things that we need to cover, my friend. So I am going to put the spotlight back on me for a minute, just to take us into our morning meditation, which is kind of one of the things we always do today. I also just want to acknowledge that the majority of people that watch this show watch the replay. So even if you're watching the replay, still give us your thoughts, your comments, and we will definitely, or at least I can promise I'll respond. And for anybody who's watching on Facebook right now, if you do want to come into the Zoom room, I'm going to give you the Zoom room number. It's 999-658-42444. So I'll post this, what Maitreya is kind of sharing and talking. But again, if you want to write it down, if you are watching on Facebook, if you want to come into our Zoom room, we are in Zoom room number 999-658-42444. All right, so there you have it. And I will post that a little bit later on. So now I invite all of us to close our eyes, put aside your other devices, any multitasking that you might have been doing. Let's close our eyes and drop into breath. Breathing at your own pace and breathing with consciousness. And as you breathe, as you go inside, just let my voice gently guide you. And for this next minute or two, I invite you to listen to your own body. And again, as I ask certain questions, it's just to guide you to connect to your body. How well resourced are you? Did you sleep well last night? Have you got enough rest in general? Have you had enough food this morning? of water? What's your overall state? Relaxed, low-grade anxiety, excited, blah? No right or wrong answer. Just whatever is real for you is what's real, and that's okay. Whatever it is, it'll pass, whether it's pleasant or unpleasant, comfortable or uncomfortable. But learning to be honest about how we're feeling, what's going on inside of our system, is really important. We want to honor these beautiful body temples that life has bestowed upon us. And that includes acknowledging any discomfort, whether it's physical, emotional, spiritual. Really acknowledging what's going on with your body. And noticing sometimes there's a difference between your physical body's condition and your spiritual condition. Just acknowledging that as well. And finally, I'd like to conclude this little meditation by asking you to make a choice of what do you want to experience during your day today, starting with your time with our show, whether you're watching the replay, watching live. What's alive for you? What's a wonderful thing you can do for yourself? And one suggestion I'll make is really learning and experiencing the medicine of Maitreya Wolf, because she's got some really wonderful medicine to share. That's why I've invited her to be on the show. So with that, I am going to pop her on here. Hello, Maitreya.
Good morning.
What did you notice when you tuned into your body?
A sense of ease. A sense of ease and a sense of excitement. I have an opportunity to share with new people and to connect with you again.
Good. And how well resourced are you today?
Not entirely topped up, honestly.
Yeah, this is good to know that. Me too. I mean, my spirit is really high because we had an amazing show last night, our biggest audience ever. But it went late. It went until 11:30 at night, and took me a while to go to sleep. And then I woke up this morning to the dogs and to excitement, and yeah. So my spirit is high, and my body's like, I really want a nap sometime today. We are going to take a nap. Yes, body.
After the show, the nap.
Yeah. Well, actually, after the show, I've got an important call and then the nap. But I will take a nap. I promise you, body, we'll take a good nap.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah.
I'm definitely feeling the embrace of winter at this point. You know, it's been a soft winter. I'm still in the Northwest here. I'm up in Oregon, and it's been a really soft winter. It's been really warm. And February always just has that flavor, that bridge flavor. It's the Imbolc time. It's Bridget's time when we go out of the depths of winter and into the first blushes of spring. But that movement kind of brings up winter's deepest power, and winter kind of puts its blanket around the land and it's like, no, it's mine. Stay with me. And brings us into the cave with the short days. And yeah, sweet. I just want to nap a lot. I want to rest a lot. I want to really be in that final stage of incubation around my dream seeds before the spring starts pulling us out again.
Wow. That makes a lot of sense. You're such a wonderful wordsmith. I love your use of words. And I want to acknowledge Kelly writes, yes, it was awesome last night. And she also went to bed after 2 a.m. and up at 8:30. So thanks for joining us, Kathy. And glad Paul is with us. Do you want to share a little of your voice with us? Would you be up for that?
Yeah, I have a I have an inspiration, so I'm going to do that.
All right. And I'm going to just check on our Facebook pages and share this out a little bit more.
Okay. So I invite you all to take a nice, long, slow, deep breath and to reestablish that connection with the deep self, with the roots of your being down in your pelvis and down in your legs and down in your feet. And feel how your spine rises up from there and how the cage of your ribs holds the organs of your body and how that lifts you up into the expression of your unique and miraculous soul, the only you there will ever be. And I want to share with you this poem, Yanak, by John O'Donohue, a Scottish poet. On the day when the weight deadens on your shoulders and you stumble, may the clay dance to balance you. And when your eyes freeze behind the gray window and the ghost of loss gets into you, may a flock of colors, indigo, red, green, and azure blue, come to awaken in you a meadow of delight. When the canvas frays in the carach of thought and a stain of ocean blackens beneath you, may there come across the waters a path of yellow moonlight to bring you safely home. May the nourishment of the earth be yours. May the clarity of the light be yours. May the fluency of the ocean be yours. May the protection of the ancestors be yours. And so may a slow wind work these words of love around you, an invisible cloak to mind your life.
Oh,
Sienna, Blessing by John O'Donohue.
that's beautiful. I love, twice you've talked about the cloak of winter and then, the cloak at the end of that. So I see the connection there, at least in that particular aspect.
Yeah, I feel like we're so frequently exposed, overexposed to the intensity of the world and to the attention economy coming after our consciousness all the time that I love this idea of the cloak, like the garment that you actually just wrap around you and can go inside of and choose to come out of when it's time and go back inside of when it's time. There's a wisdom in that.
There is, absolutely. And, especially because with the pandemic and people's reaction to it, right? Like when we react because something's different than the way we want it to be, and there's such a reaction to so many people not feeling safe in the world, not being able to do the things they want to do. And what I'm loving is your surrender and embracing of the cloak of winter, your desire to just, okay, go inside and use the winter time to rest. And so that's standing out for me.
Mm. I remember when the pandemic started and there was that sense, just it was so brief and it was so fleeting, but it was so beautiful, of the pause. Everybody spoke to the pause, but there was a sense of the pause actually really being there. And then there was just this flurry of this rush of everything going online and everybody just desperately figuring out however they could do whatever they needed to do. And, on the physical level of like making your money and whatever, I understand that. But there was a there was a deep sorrow for me. There was a deep sorrow for me of like, oh, we didn't pause. We didn't pause. We didn't stop. We didn't let the world go for a while. We just grasped at a new way and rushed into a new way. And I feel a sorrow about that because I feel like that the pause that was offered to us or forced upon us had a deep, deep magic in it that we missed a lot of it.
Hmm.
We missed a lot of it.
Yeah, point well taken. I'll come on down dialogue with you for a moment here. Well, I certainly am one of those people who rushed into creating a lot of online shows. Love Coach Academy, my company, started doing. We at one point we were doing 15 shows a week. Now we're down to 8. So I take responsibility for that, playing my little role in what you said. Um, And at the same time, I do agree. I mean, obviously, it would have been great if all of the world just really went deep inside at the same time. That would have been amazing, and we probably would have reached some sort of synchronistic uh, mass awakening of consciousness. So yeah, we kind of missed that boat. But I also want to say that I think that as hard as it is, it's important to have compassion for people who have lost their jobs, who have had health crisis, who've lost loved ones. A lot of people have died. So there's no doubt it's serious. But there is a gentle grace to the pandemic also, in that it has slowed us down.
Mm.
Much, much less pollution than there's been in 20 years. And so many of our distractions have been taken away. And as is nature with human nature, some people have responded really beautifully. I mean, honestly, most of my colleagues, most of my peers are thriving. Some of them are thriving spiritually, some of them are thriving creatively. And so people who have a practice, I've noticed, are doing really, really well.
Mm-hmm.
People who don't have a strong practice, or maybe had gotten away from their practice, are the ones that I'm noticing are more challenged.
Yeah. We have to draw on the deepest of our deep resources at this point to really navigate what we're walking through with any modicum of grace.
Yeah.
And to really glean the wisdom from it requires an ability to go into underworld wisdom, soul wisdom.
So what a perfect segue. Although I see the guitar and I'm eager for the guitar to start doing its thing. So I'm excited about that. But,
I can share a song and then we can segue.
okay, but think about, because I do want to hear about what some of your personal practices are and how they have supported you during this time. So
Oh yeah, I'd love to
pop that
share.
in the back, and I'm gonna zip out. I mean, I'll be right here, but I want to put the full focus on you.
I'm moving through the fresh falling snow. One made of all the things I love the most. Beauty, wisdom, power, mystery. Mother, will you change me? Ooh. Once upon a time, when I came to this world, my roots reached deep down into the moist and fertile grounds. Our wings took flight with the morning sun. Mother Wolf, I'm coming home. Home now, home to your wild arms. Home now, home to the place where I belong. The truth of living in a wild heart. Concerning these matters I remember, and now I'm in your eyes. Oh, yeah. Remember laying down here side by side. Your fur and my skin, how they touched in the light of the fire. Our dreams rested into easy trust. Mother, I'm coming home. Oh, now only a wild arm. Oh, now only the place where I belong. The truth of living a failed heart. It's raining, it's raining, it's mad as I remember hearing your arms. Oh, now only oh, now home from the place I never should have gone. The lie of go to push program more. None of these bullshit matters. I remember hearing yours, and I'm coming home now. Only failed on. Home now, home to the place where I belong. The truth of living in the wild heart. It's ready, smart as I remember in yours. Oh, they're moving through the fresh falling snow. The one made of all things I love the most. Beauty, wisdom, power, mystery. Mother Wolf, you are holy for me.
So I loved the majority of it that we could hear, but just so you know, we were having some audio issues. Uh,
Okay.
when you were hitting high notes or soft notes, it was going in and out. Um, so just so you know, and it felt, or my perception, my projection was it was a Zoom thing, that Zoom was having trouble tracking the 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 tonal change. So something for us to remember for today.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah. And your voice is so lovely, and I really just love your spirit.
Thank you.
Yeah, yeah. Um, so uh, the question I had for you, and maybe if you move I don't know if it's possible to move the microphone down just a little bit, and lift it up, and then we can see a little more of you. Um, yeah, we want to have the complete Maitreya Wolf experience.
Here she is.
Hey, thank you. No hiding behind the mic. Um, so tell us about your practices. How have your practices supported you and informed you during this unique time that we're in?
Mm. Well, there are a lot of ways to answer that question, of course. I I have already I've been through a lot of trauma in my life, and I've spent a lot of time integrating, healing and integrating that. And so I have developed a tremendous relationship with my body and also with the earth and with the spirits that I walk with and my own soul. So I have a, I have a fundamental question that I ask myself all the time, and that's what's really happening here.
Mm.
All the time, I ask what's really happening here, especially if I notice that uh, my energy, body, or my mind, or my behavior is starting to go a little off the map. I have that question in my pocket all the time. What's really happening here? And I stop, I breathe, I go inside, I go down. I don't go up and out, but I do that a lot. Like I go up into the spirit realm a lot, but I go down to soul. And I really search for what's triggered. I search for what's stimulated, overstimulated, understimulated, what's overstimulated in me, what's under resourced in me, what's starting to generate behaviors that are that could be damaging or um, troublesome in other ways. So that's one of my practices is to ask that question, what's really happening here, and go into what I call the council of the self, to go into the many parts of myself and try to get an understanding of like who's speaking, who's starting to drive the behavior, who's asking for what within me, and set myself into the state of like fulfilling that need without that sub personality, without that aspect of myself starting to drive behavior in an effort to meet that need.
I'm,
That's been hugely helpful.
I want to riff on that and talk with you a little bit about that, because what you touched on was several things that, in my own unique way through Love Coach Academy, we teach. Um, and what I'm loving is the importance that she's describing, what's really happening, differentiating between patterned reactions, patterned responses, habitual reactions, to really dropping in. Um, but then when you start talking about subpersonalities, I got even more excited, because I love subpersonality work. So I'm curious if you've identified and named certain subpersonalities. The 13-year-old teenager, or the wise muse, whatever it is. Have you done that?
Yeah, yeah. Some of them are of course really elegant and magnificent and all the things, and some of them are just like funny because I need to get a hold of these parts of me when they start driving behavior, because I have this part of me that's like brutal with comparison, like brutal on myself with comparison, brutal on myself with judgment. And I just call them the snarky bitches. It's like this posse of three girls. They're kind of timeless, but they're female, and they're like they're skinny and they're dry and they're brittle and they're just like nasty. And when they get on the mic, when the wound gets on the mic and they come up and they start being like, oh, I'm like, oh, you need to take a bath, don't you? Take a bath right now. Yeah, that's what we need to do. We need to go for a walk. We need to dance. We need to like feed them somehow in a way that's healthy for my full soul, but feed them in a way that like they can put their attention elsewhere. And then there's, of course, there's the priestess, there's the queen, there's the magi, there's the mystic, there's all these different parts of me, and they all have different voices, they all have different colors. I have all these different necklaces, all these different stone necklaces, like different ones need different stones to feel really activated and empowered. And let alone like the behavioral aberrant behavioral part of it. It's like you can go into relationship with these elements of the self in magical work and in soul work and in soul power work. Like this is something I do in my soul power mentoring, is like start to identify these parts of yourself, start to understand who's overfed, who's underfed, which parts of you are you where do you naturally gravitate towards, and which parts do you naturally avoid, and how can you support and empower all these different parts of yourself so that they feel nourished and resourced and grounded and at ease. And then you can have access to the full scope of your power, which includes everything. It includes the frightened part of you, the nasty part of you, the angry part of you, the joyful part of you, the peaceful part of you, the mystic. Like that's really the deep one for me, is like the mystic, the one who sits in between the worlds and accesses the wisdom and the medicine and the magic of all the worlds and synthesizes them to communicate that in this world.
Beautiful. I'm going to give a brief example of how I do that with just two of my subpersonalities, and then I'd love to hear a specific example of how you synthesize. Um, so one of my more pained subpersonalities is Rat Fink Scott. And when I was a little boy, I used to be smart, so they accelerated me. Back in those days, they like accelerated you. So I ended up with kids that were basically 2 years older than me. So even though, as life turned out, I turned out to be 6'2", but back then, the difference between being 7 and being 9 is pretty big. And so, last kid picked on the team, and I loved baseball, and they took my mitt and they wrote Rat Fink on it. Right? Yeah, it was painful. It was really painful. And so it was like a traumatized part of myself. Okay. That part of me that, not strong enough, not physical enough, not, able to compete at the level of my friends. Now, my most exalted self is Hall of Fame Scott, and it is an alternate reality that I have put a lot of time and energy into, in which I'm the world's greatest shortstop, great baseball player, amazing leadoff hitter. And that's like one of my most exalted imagined selves. So there's like, those two. And I have them play catch together. Rat Fink Scott just plays catch with Hall of Fame Scott, and they talk. And it's really healing for them both. It's really healing for them both, just to play catch and to chat and to talk about life. So that's one way that I kind of synthesize, if you will, using your word, two of my subpersonalities. So I'm curious to hear a little bit about like how you synthesize it. Maybe if you have a specific example to share.
Let me think on that for a while. Right now, I'm deep in the practice of energy alchemy. So I've been working a lot with the Taurus field and finding I go into meditation and I establish my field and I feel into my natural Taurus field and I feel into the places where there are variations in its natural state of attunement. And those variations are usually a focal point for one of the exaggerated selves in the Council of Self. And it's so challenging to speak of, but my experience with it is I go into the energy alchemy of it and I really go into the tuning of it. Like I don't ever want to eradicate or alienate any part of myself. Like I have deep love for every part of myself, especially the more challenging ones, or not especially, but like in a special way, the more challenging ones, because I recognize that they come from the trauma points where like fragments were broken. And, I tend them really closely and I bring those energies into relationship, with not something as specific as like playing catch, but there's a way that the priestess feels. And I sit in that feeling, I generate that feeling. And there's a way that the rebellious teenager feels. And if I can bring those energies alive in me at the same time and bring them into a relationship, and a relationship where they are enjoying each other, then each one gets access to the medicine of the other, and each one gets access to the power of the other and the healing of the other. And my Taurus gets smoother, as it were. It gets smoother and more refined.
I think you may want to define for people what you mean by your Taurus, because she's not talking about the astrological Taurus.
And I'm
She's
not talking about the car either. A toroidal field, you would generally see one in a rendition of a black hole. It's a donut shape, um, but it doesn't have a hole in the center. In the energy body of the self, the center is the column, the column of ascendant and descendant energy, and the Taurus field goes around us in a ring and emanates from the heart space as well as the belly and the mind. These are like the major points of activation in the central channel. And it generates a field that's a self-generating, self-regulating energetic field. And we can bend it, we can patch it. It's constantly it's like right now it's like living in an asteroid storm for our Tauruses, and it's constantly getting like pocked and punctured and sometimes like chunks torn out of it and like major aberrations off to the side. Like it should be this beautiful, just smooth, self contained system. And it's the natural flow of our energy system. I have found, and I have found in my work with others, it's the natural flow of our energy system when our energy is healthy, which doesn't mean perfect. It just means integrated and in the process of integration.
You know, in some schools of thought around soul retrieval work, that's what happens is when, the toral field, and when she talked about chunks being taken away, sometimes people give a lot of their power away to a parent or a friend or a lover. Or sometimes life comes along and something we really love gets taken away from us, and then there's literally like that feeling of a chunk of us being taken away. And again, obviously it depends. We're getting philosophical and depends on belief systems and how you like to see things. But soul retrieval work, I recently had somebody on who really I was really getting, wow, this is real. And she was describing her soul retrieval work, and she talked about that repairing the field that we got a fun message that I want to read from one of our readers here, or one of our people watching. Nancy writes, and I almost wish we could hear Nancy's voice. I don't know her, but I can imagine her voice being just like very kind of, right to it. She says, "Why don't you tell those three snarky gals to get lost? You're no longer my friends. Or change your behavior and patterns and be more supportive and loving of me. That's just your mind playing tricks on your heart. Retrain your brain, rewire your mind. We all have to do this to be our more true, authentic self." So I just want to acknowledge Nancy's comments there.
Yeah, that's one approach.
And one of the things too is with subpersonality work, what I always like to teach or suggest is they're like children. All of our different subpersonalities are children. And on one level, we love all of our children equally, while recognizing that some are much more difficult than others. But we love them all equally, and they're all welcome at the table. And that's the analogy I like to, it's like, okay, we've got this big family inside of us of subpersonalities. And imagine they're all at the dinner table, and some of them are demanding attention, and some of them are very quiet, and some of them are really pleasant, and some of them can be unpleasant, but they're all at the table and they're all part of us. And we learn how to love and accept all parts of ourselves, just like good parents learn how to love and accept and manage all of their children. Now, they need to be managed, but with love and acceptance. So that's one way to work with subpersonalities.
Yeah, in thinking about Nancy's question, why don't you tell them to get lost or change their behavior, you know, step up or piss off as it goes. Um, I recognize that every part of someone, myself or anyone else, has some critical element of their power stored in it and some critical element of their wholeness stored in it. And I want to court these parts of me into alliance instead of alienate them. And I put my foot down with all kinds of things. Like I have amazing boundaries with everything, but I don't want to alienate any part of myself that's already aberrant because it is fundamentally alienated from some wound, because that's where it comes from. So if I can court that part of myself into a different expression, if I can court that part of someone else into a different expression, if we can get past the defenses and into the power and have that part generously offer that power to the whole self, I feel that's more lasting. That's been more lasting for me because I have gone through years of like, oh, just piss off already with all different parts of myself that I've been sick of dealing with. But until I come into deep curiosity, really like the holiness of curiosity with why are you that way? Why do you want to behave this way? What does it protect? And how could we deal with this differently so that I can actually have the power that you are protecting, so that I can have the experience that you want to create in your positive expression?
Beautifully described. Yes, yes, and yes. Tell us about soul power mentoring. I'm going to put the full focus on you as you do that.
Soul Power Mentoring is my session based mentoring work that is a journey to get someone rooted in their soul as their place of orientation for life. And I use the framework of the 7 altars of the Temple of Soul to do this. And that is earth, the body; air, spirituality; water, the psyche; fire, creativity and sexuality; the masculine, which is structure; and the feminine, which is relationship; and essence, which is relationship with nature, the living world. So when I get somebody into the process with me, the first thing we do is explore the state of their altars. Like I was talking about earlier, what is really strong in you? What is overfed? What is underfed? What's the state of this map? And for me, it's a 7-pointed star. Like we sit inside of this 7-pointed star and we can constantly attend to these different aspects of ourselves to bring ourselves into this state of integrated balance so that our soul power can naturally flow through that integrated structure of self. And it has a lot to do with healing work in the and then there are a few ways to do it. Like I do individual sessions with people where we work on specific things that are active for them. And then that we don't get into the 7 altars so much in individual sessions because there's just not space and time. We do we do parts work, we do soul retrieval work, we do trauma-based work, we do exploratory work, and just deal with whatever's like pressing for them in the moment, if that's all they want to do, or if they just want to get a flavor for how I work as a teacher and a guide and a healer. And then there are these journeys. There's the voyage, there's the odyssey, and there's the initiation. So there's 3, 6, and 12 months that you can dive in. And in the 3 months, I get somebody integrated with the altars, like introduce this system, introduce this framework, get them starting to think about their life in these terms. So when we come together for our sessions, we're doing a counseling session, but it's in the framework of the 7 altars. How are your altars? How are your altars? You were talking about this altar last time. What's up with this altar right now? You haven't talked about this altar in a while. What's going on over here? And we explore what's going on for them and how to get them more integrated. It's really fun. I really enjoy it. I really enjoy watching somebody like take this in and start to have that framework for themselves.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then in the longer journeys, we do that. And I also bring in the storytelling elements by having somebody work with a soul story. And that soul story can be any story, but it's a myth of some kind that they deeply resonate with, because most people have some story that they've heard that they deeply resonate with. And so we take that story and we go into the mythic dimension of it as a way to deepen the quality of our own experience. So we track the seven altars, and we also use that soul story as a framework for understanding the mythic dimension of your lived experience.
Wow. Wow.
Really great.
Can you share an example of someone you've worked with and how it's impacted them?
Well, I can share how I've worked with my soul story. I think that's better than talking about the people that I've worked with.
Okay.
Um,
Fair enough.
my soul story is how the Selkie who lost her skin. So it's an ancient Irish tale, and Selkies are seals who can become women one night a month on the full moon. And if they can take off their skins, they become women, they have this gorgeous time dancing and being wild and free, and they have to get their skins back on by dawn or they'll be trapped as women for 7 years. And there's a story of a Selkie who got trapped by a man who saw her dancing as a woman and fell in love with her and took her skin. And so she was trapped as a woman. And it's this big, long story about this woman who lost her power by just not fully understanding her surroundings, and went through this whole journey of working to adapt to this new life before she realized that, like, I'm dying because I'm not myself right now. I need to be myself. I need my skin back. And so she goes and tries to get her skin back from him, and he won't give it to her. And so her daughter finds it, and it's ruined because it's been so long. And then she realizes she has to go see the old woman of the world to learn how to find her way home. And the trip to the old woman of the world is this extraordinary journey. And then the old woman of the world is like, this is what you have to do to get your skin back. And so she goes on this new journey to sing over the bones and earn this new skin for herself.
Wow.
Yeah, it's a really powerful tale, and it's a tale that I tell in four pieces on a teaching level, because there
Wow.
are four distinct elements to this tale. And for myself, when I met this story, it gave me this fundamental mythic understanding of what I was walking through. It's not my only soul story, but it's my central soul story. And it's the story of descent for understanding the fullness of your own power. So I go through, and I can look, like, when I get into any fully formed situation or even forming situation, I can use this story as a lens to understand the archetypal energies at play, like the fundamental universal forces at play, and how to relate with them and how to dance with them in a way that is empowering for me, that brings me home to my own skin and brings me home to my own soul.
Beautiful. I've heard that Saki story somewhere a long time ago, but it was a long time ago. And I'm loving how you're applying it to yourself. And I was just going to ask, where are you in your journey of getting your skin back?
I've sung over the bones.
Mm.
I've earned my skin back, and now I'm learning this new me.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
How's it feel to have your skin back?
Amazing. Amazing. Totally amazing, because I earned it. There's this piece of, like, wisdom can't be given to you. Wisdom is earned by how you relate to your experience. wisdom doesn't just happen because you're alive. Wisdom happens when you relate with your experience in a way that you harvest the knowledge from it and then alchemize that knowledge into your living wisdom. And I have been blessed to cultivate a little skill in that realm. So I got my skin back.
I want to acknowledge the uh, tenderness of this reader. And yes, Nancy, of course, I do remember you now from the light touch last week. Nancy writes, um, uh, she was innocent and vulnerable, and a man overpowered her. Talking about Silky.
Mm-hmm.
She goes on to say, sounds like me. One sexual thing that happened to me at age 3 by a man, and I've spent decades attempting to return to my true self.
Yeah.
I choose to put on a new skin now. Thanks.
Yay. Blessings on that, Nancy. May it serve you well.
Yeah. That's a sweet moment. And thank you for your vulnerability, Nancy, and sharing on that.
Yeah. Thank you. That's powerful.
We're already at 5 minutes.
Yeah.
Uh,
It seems like we are.
um, do you want to try another song? Or do you want to talk more about soul power mentoring?
Will you put up one of the banners that
Of
is at the website?
you said banners, and we've got to get to the banners.
My
I
banners.
got to get to the banners. Thank you for reminding me. Um, give me just a sec. I had them here a moment ago. Love those banners. All right. Well, I'm going to show all of them.
Okay.
But we will start with, since we're talking about soul power mentoring, let's start with that because that's what came up first. And this is, of course, a wonderful way to get a hold of you. Soulpowermentoring.com. Soulpowermentoring.com. For
Yeah,
more,
and there's information on the journeys, and there's information on how I approach the work and where I'm coming from in the work. And there's information about my upcoming class, Energy Tending, where you'll learn about the toroidal field and how to tend your own toroidal field. And there's also a page with my other stuff, like my music and my YouTube and my podcast and all the things. I got a lot of things. There's a lot of stuff out there for y'all to get into. So yeah, please come dive in and check everything out. I want to share it. I want to give it to you. I want to feed you with the nourishment that I've cultivated in my life.
so I'm going to do a little pitch. I did not know Maitreya, and she was referred by one of our, a collaborator on one of the shows we were doing. And I'm pretty snobby about who I let come onto my show and play music because we now have amazing musicians every week. And so I had no idea who this chick was. You know, it's a Maitreya Wolf. Okay, great. Sounds kind of new agey. So they sent me her album and I listened to it at night and I dropped in to this album, Fertile Darkness, and really dropped into it. It's beautiful. It's really a beautiful, beautiful album, beautiful recording, I should say. And it really does take you on a journey. I really loved your use of natural sounds, nature, along with, of course, your beautiful voice and your instrumentation. So I really want to encourage everybody to check out Fertile Darkness, available on Bandcamp and also through SoundCloud, Apple Music, and Spotify. Yeah. Anything you want to tell us about that album, that recording?
Oh, that album is it's a collection of the songs of my initiation.
Mm.
I was I went through I had a trauma when I was 28, and that plunged me into my first soul story, which was the descent of Ishtar. And I went on a powerful, powerful, long initiatory journey with life, just getting cooked, deeply, deeply cooked. And my voice emerged in that time. I had sung as a child. I sang in a children's chorus as a child, and received classical training in that, and hadn't sung, sung other people's stuff, but didn't have like my soul song, didn't have my soul voice, didn't have my work. And then my song came through in that trauma. And during that initiation, I cultivated it. And this album was the culmination of the initiation. That was like my final step. Cause, in these initiatory journeys, in the underworld journeys, especially, like you go to the underworld, and the crux between wisdom and trauma, the crux between being initiated and being further traumatized by your experiences, can you harvest the wisdom? Can you find the treasure? And can you carry it back out of the underworld in a way that you can give it forward into the life of the world in a way that it will feed and support and guide others in their journey of becoming? And this album is that for me. It's something that I made that I can put in someone's hands and say, may you be well nourished on your journey through your own fertile darkness. May you find the treasure. May you cultivate your wisdom. And may you find your way home more powerful, more full, more you.
I really appreciate something you said a minute ago, because as a coach, especially men don't want to do therapy. Men don't want to go back. Why go back and look at it? Why go back and revisit that wound? Why should I do that? And there is a point that, we all know people that just re-stimulate their trauma by playing it over and over and over in their mind, or getting new performers to reenact it with them.
Yeah.
Um, so I love what you said, that the difference between it, I don't remember the exact words, but what I heard was it further agitating the wound and really having it being a healing experience, is by harvesting the wisdom from it, harvesting the gifts from it, and then bring that harvest back into our being, so that we are a more full being. Now, these are my words, my interpretation, but you gave me that beautiful juxtaposition between the difference between when we're just, picking at the wound, making
Yeah.
bringing the blood back out, versus how to really, really work with it as a gift, and ultimately to come out of it more fully embodied.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
Yeah. It's a skill. It's a skill that you can point towards it, you can encourage towards it, you can guide towards it, but you can't give that skill to anyone. I mean, that's what makes it a crucible of wisdom. Is like, therapy is so interesting because, from myself, I feel like if you don't integrate the alchemy, the energy alchemy, you're not going to get that wisdom. You're not going to get the treasure. Like the hardships that life puts us through is like, it pushes us beyond our known capacity so that we will rise into our actual capacity. But there's this this funny thing that happens. Is like we try to find every comfortable way out of doing that instead of doing that, because we don't know that it's possible when we get pushed into that crucible. We don't know that that greater capacity exists within us when we enter that crucible. We only find that greater capacity by being in that crucible. And we only find it if we're willing to actually stay in how that crucible feels. I mean, so much about it, you're mentioning like the thing about men. It's like men are conditioned to not feel, and healing, like you have to feel the thing. You don't really, there's a magic there. Like you don't have to do all kinds of shit. Like just the fundamental thing is you have to be willing to feel it. Just sit there and feel it. And
Girls, feeling is for sissies. Oh, that's and
feeling, feeling is for warriors.
poor,
Feeling is for warriors. And I think, yeah, and I think if we can reframe that for people, if we can understand that, like that is a profound bravery to just.
your audio just cut. Literally, you just went mute. I didn't do it to her. I didn't mute her. Um, try again. Yeah, no, she's still muted. But yeah, well, she's getting that together, and we're almost done. That's one of the great tragedies of young boys growing up on the playground and being taught, don't cry. Crying is for sissies. Uncomfortable feelings are for girls. And it is a retraining. It's something that I had to retrain myself to learn how to cry. I went 10 years without crying when I was young, when I was a teenager. From age 16, I had a trauma. I cried for the last time for 10 years because I was shamed for it. And I had to have a girlfriend who taught me how to cry again. So it is a whole retraining. And now I love working with men and helping them access their feelings. Do you have voice back?
Can you hear me?
Yes, although it's soft. Your
Oh,
volume is low.
okay. Oh, Zoom.
I know.
Oh, Zoom. So fussy, you little Zoom.
Oh gosh. And we need to wrap up because I've got actually a really important meeting at 11:15 that I need to prepare for.
Okay.
But I love this was like a really, really too fast of an hour. I mean, it's like boom. I kind of knew it would be though as I was reading through your bio. I was like, oh man, this is gonna fly by. She's just got so much going on. Uh,
Yeah.
so I would love to continue the conversation with you
Yeah,
publicly and privately.
it's
Uh,
always good to see you, Scott.
yeah, yeah. Thank you for your amazing. I'm going to go to one last screen share here because this seems to kind of have the works. There she is.
There it is.
She
All
does
the
teaching, mentoring. And so the main website is her name, Maitreya Wolf. That's spelled Maitreya Wolf.com. MaitreyaWolf.com. She's on Instagram and Facebook. And definitely check out what all the amazing, wonderful things this woman has to offer. And thank you for blessing me and our audience and Nancy. Nancy's sending lots of thanks right now. And for every Nancy who speaks up, there's the 10 quiet Nancys that are just like kind of taking it in. So we want to acknowledge all of you too. Thank you, Maitreya.
Yeah, thank you so much, Scott, for having me on. And it's so good to see you again. And so good to dive into all this good material together. And thank you, everybody out there, for taking some time to connect. I hope you are well fed by what's been shared here today. And blessings on your journey coming home to soul and yourself and making that a gift to the world with your life.
And utilize a coach. Look, when the car needs servicing, you take it to a mechanic.
Take it to the mechanic. Totally. We're a couple of boss mechanics right here. Come see us.
This is the most important stuff, really. And now our generations, because there's multiple, she's a different generation than I am, but our generations are here to heal our ancestral lineage. And that requires time, which we now have, thanks to our ancestors who, paid the price for us to have the freedom and the time that we have today. And we have the tools like what Maitreya has to offer. So get coaching, Love Coach Academy, Maitreya, get support, do the work. Now's the time.
Yeah. The last thing I will say is that I had a mentor and it changed my life. It changed my life. It made my journey through the underworld so much easier. So that's why we're here offering what we've harvested from our journeys to support you and yours. So yeah, reach out. And so much love to you, Scott. So much love to you, everybody out there.
All right. And thank you, everybody, for watching, especially those of you watching the replay and those live. And in our Zoom room, Kathy, Tamala, Paul, sorry we didn't get a chance to get to you more. But next time, God's blessings, everybody. Have a beautiful Sunday.